It's been almost 10 years since the fateful day that Saudi human rights activist Raif Badawi was placed behind bars for heresy. His case would become one of the most publicized examples of Saudi repression in the 21st century. This year, he was finally released, but the struggle for justice is not over yet. As early as 2008, Raif's outspoken activism made him a target of the theocratic Saudi regime. This activism included founding and running the website Free Saudi Liberals, advocating for liberalism and secularism within Saudi Arabia. Unsurprisingly, he was subject to frequent harassment from authorities, including an eventual travel ban barring him from leaving the country. The attacks on Raif would see dramatic escalation in 2012. Accused of insulting Islam and apostasy from Islam, the charges he faced had the potential to put him on death row. Fortunately, Raif was able to avoid the worst possible outcome. After he recited the Shahada, the Muslim declaration of faith, authorities were convinced that his support for religious freedom did not amount to abandonment of Islam, and the apostasy charge was dropped. But Raif's staunch and outspoken advocacy for human rights remained a problem in itself. As Saudi authorities saw it, such statements undermined the security of the theocratic state and threatened the foundations of the social order. So when Raif's sentence finally came, more than a year after he was arrested, it was a barbaric and draconian 7 years in prison to be accompanied by 600 lashes. On appeal, the sentence was actually increased: 10 years in prison, 1,000 lashes, and a fine of 1 million Saudi riyals. He would also be placed under a 10-year travel ban and media embargo following the completion of his prison sentence. All this for the crime of speaking his mind about religious fundamentalism. The flagrant injustice of these verdicts ignited outrage all across the international community. Human rights organizations and governments alike called for Raif's immediate release, but to no avail. News came to light that Raif's treatment in prison was even worse. In spite of Raif's diabetic condition, the first 50 of his lashings were carried out before a public crowd in 2013, an act of cruelty inflicting such a physical toll on Raif that the rest of his lashings were postponed indefinitely. In protest of the treatment and conditions to which he was subjected, Raif went on hunger strike on multiple occasions, which resulted in outright hospitalization at least once. All the while, he continued to languish in confinement, no closer to freedom. Meanwhile, Raif's wife and Saf had managed to escape to safety in Canada with the couple's children. While his children were forced to spend their formative years growing up without their father, and Saf became a tireless and unceasing advocate for Raif's welfare and freedom. In 2015, she accepted on Raif's behalf the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought from the European Parliament.
Arab societies frequently believe that free thought is decadence and is an insult to religion, even though it clearly is not.
And every Friday in Vienna, a vigil was held for Raif demanding his freedom. The 377th and final of these was held on March 18th, 2022, because 1 week prior, with almost no advance notice after almost a full decade of incarceration and efforts to free him, Raif was released. Obscenely overdue though it was, Raif's freedom was widely and internationally celebrated. But Raif's trials are not over. While he now walks as a free man, he remains sundered from his family on the other side of the world, his travel ban still grounding him in Saudi Arabia. And SAF, some Canadian officials, and numerous human rights organizations have called for Raif to be allowed to reunite with his family. It's high time this happened. There can never be true justice for what Raif was made to endure. Those 10 years he lost can't be taken back. But keeping him a prisoner of Saudi Arabia for another decade would be another monstrous injustice all its own. To see one another again, after so much time suffering and apart, is the absolute least Raif and his family are owed now.